experience the limits for yourself. Don't put society's limits on you, or don't put someone else's limit on you to the point where you wouldn't even try.
Bolaji Olatoye is a digital transformation specialist. He spent decades working with firms like Barclays, BNP Paribas, JP Morgan, and Merrill Lynch, to name a few. Now, as the founder of Altitude AI Consultancy, he helps entrepreneurs grow their business and achieve remarkable business results, utilizing technology that he has honed his skills in to take them to the next level.
Being the youngest of a Nigerian family, there's a hierarchy. So, youngest of three boys, in my family anyway, it's like the oldest is the main one, then the middle, then the youngest, and the youngest is like the person that gets called for tasks. Over the years, kind of grew into that subservient, I'm the one that must follow instructions, I'm the one that is to be sent, as opposed to the one that is to lead. On the weekend, I was directing a choir that, singing at a sold out venue. That was my event. But today you want me to be building spreadsheets. It's demoralizing. I didn't think too far ahead because, if I'm honest, I think deep down inside, I always knew that business was going to be my end game. I want to use technology to make those who would have been challengers to now step up as champions. If we're not careful, we're kind of training ourselves to rely on these devices to make decisions for you that actually your brain has the higher capacity to make. So we're kind of, if we're not careful, we're dumbing ourselves down a little bit.
How do you define leadership?
Oh, I would say
Bolaji Olatoye, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing so good. Thank you so much for that intro. And it's lovely to be here. Funny, as you were kind of giving that intro, I was thinking to myself, yeah, like I have been in the background for quite a while. And I've been exploring this what I consider to be kind of like a weird, strange space of, okay, this is what it likes to be. This is what it's like to be in front. I've been doing that for the past year, and I'm still getting used to it, but I'm finding my feet. So it's lovely to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. I guess I'm curious, like, why is that? Why is it that you have operated in the background? Because one of the things I talk about when you run your business is be the front and center, be the key person of influence, because people like people buy from people. So why have you done the opposite, and then now you're slowly starting to come out?
Do I think it comes from I've always been a supporter. So the way that I've operated has always been I am in servitude of something else or someone else. Even right down from to my, if we want to go there, like my church service days. So I've always been like running a department, supporting the minister, or when I got into the corporate world, I was supporting the traders. We were doing the tech, and for a lot of that time, technology was more of like a background function, almost like a core function that supported people who are out in front. So you had like the front people, and then you had the middle and back people. So I've always, until recently, I've been very much used to supporting others, and even with other arms of our business where we support entrepreneurs and founders and things like that, there's always been that, okay, I'm going to support you. I'm going to put these things in place to support you. I've been in business partnerships as well, where it's been the other business partner who's been out in front as opposed to me. So it's just been a paradigm shift for me to explore, okay, this is what it's like to breathe front air, as it were.
And you mentioned, obviously, operating in church, operating in business. It's good to go, I guess, way back to the origin story of how you even came about to doing what you're doing now. Let me take you back to a 7-year-old Bolaji. What were you like then?
7-year-old Bolaji, let's just think about it. I was a very cheeky boy. I think I've had it, I hope I can say this, I've had it beaten out of me, but I've...
Discipline.
I don't know whether you need to cut that out, but I was... I was a very cheeky boy, but also very curious and very, I was a kind of person that I always wanted to explore things. I wanted to try things. I wanted to do things. I was just very, very active. But I was also, as a young boy, like, those people that it's like I wasn't overly loud in public, so I would try things out, and it's like, okay, I'm so good at these things, but no one would ever know, kind of thing. So um, I I probably was in a shell, and then being the youngest of a Nigerian family. For those who know how that goes, there's a hierarchy. So youngest of three boys in my family anyway, it's like the oldest is the main one, then the middle, then the youngest, and the youngest is like the person that gets called for tasks. So let's say the parent will be like, "Oh, somebody get me the remote." Eldest will be like, "Yeah,
Thanks you.
you get me the remote," and then the youngest will be like, "Yeah, you get me the remote," and I'm like, yeah, "Okay, it's me." So I kind of over the years kind of grew into that subservient. I'm the one that must follow instructions. I'm the one that is to be sent, as opposed to the one that is to lead. Do you get what I mean? So yeah.
Wow. And when you then look at you having that way of, I guess, growing up and that culture around you in that environment, when did that begin to change? Was that at secondary school, or were you all that way the way inclined?
Um, I think there's been pockets of that throughout my whole life, but it's almost like um, because of my curiosity and my inquisitiveness and just the time that I spent in getting good at things. So I became really good at just loads of stuff from a young age. So then you kind of go through that um, journey of like self-awareness, like, wait, no, I'm I'm really good at this. Like I should be putting myself forward, but it's like, no, no, let me not, because he or she is there. So I've been in that, in that constant like tussle um for my formative years. I think it kind of followed me even into the corporate world. I think it was maybe towards the end of my um tenure in corporate and like my transition into entrepreneurship. It's like, do you know what? No, actually, nah. This is like I'm decent. I'm decent at this. Let me push higher. Let me put myself forward, and let me not, stop putting my lamp under a bushel, to coin a phrase. Because yeah, like I if we think about the whole David and Goliath, because I think about that a lot. I used to consider I think I carried this challenger mentality. So there's a challenger mentality where it's like David was the unlikely choice, and Goliath was the big bad, and the one that everybody feared. But David knew that actually, do you know what? Even though like I am not the likely choice, you all don't know what I've been doing in the back room. You all don't know, like, I've been killing bears, tigers, and lions from day. I'm gonna step to the plate, and I'm gonna do basically what I do. Um, and then from the challenger mentality, obviously he did it, killed Goliath. Then the challenger changed to champion. So I think I went through that kind of phrase where it's like, no, actually, I've I've done enough. I've done enough to be able to, consider myself a champion, and then, like, raise my vibration, if you want to call it that, and just, actually, yeah, let's own this.
So it's a powerful analogy, actually, when you're thinking from challenger to champion. But then it's also interesting to listen to you talk about that length of time that it also took for you to go through that. And because you were in very, if I'm going to your corporate roles, when you decided to go into software and IT, was that because that was also a space where you just loved and you thrived, or was that a space where that also was part of just being in the background role but doing something that you loved?
Um, it was a combination. I feel like, the spiritual answer is the hand of God was involved, and I do agree with that. But then practically, my eldest brother went into banking, into technology. So I'm like, okay, looks good. Let's go to banking. let's go into banking technology. As in, there wasn't. I mean, I always enjoyed tech. I've always been a bit of a geek, a bit of a nerd in that respect. But it wasn't. There wasn't too much like deep thought that okay, I'm gonna go here, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna maneuver myself into like CIO, and I'm gonna work for the top banks. No, it was literally just my brother's there. The actual story was one summer I went to stay with my brother, and he was working at one of the big banks, and he was like, "Oh, let's go for this dinner." His work people were hosting a dinner, and I went there, chatted with the people for a little bit, as in, I didn't realize that I was maybe being interviewed or whatever, and then before you know it, one of the guys was like, "Oh, okay, you start on Monday." I'm like, what? So I'm like, yeah, I think I can. So, basically, I got like a very junior role on the desk, like building spreadsheets, and then from that point on, I went on to grad schemes and earned my chops. But literally, uh, I benefited from what they say, having family who are in already in the business. So I can definitely say I benefited from that. But that was as in there was no premeditated plan, so to speak.
Wow. So before you went to that dinner, what was your like
My plan.
plan long term? Yeah.
Um, so I don't even know. I mean, I knew that I was gonna maybe try and get into some tech role. It might have, I probably would have ended up into maybe consulting. I think that around that time it may have been maybe a consulting firm, like I don't know, PwC, Accenture, or those kind of roles. I think that was the route. That was the only route that I could see available to me, considering that I did a software engineering degree. Um, but I would have. I mean, I was going through the application processes. I was doing all of that, but yeah, I didn't, I didn't think too far ahead because if I'm honest, I think deep down inside, I always knew that business was going to be my end game, my end route in terms of like where I ended up. So there was there was a little bit of a like, okay, yeah, this career is whatever. I'm clearly an entrepreneur, so let me just do this until, I make a million in business, selling the t-shirts that I'm selling or whatever. And
Where did that come from? Where did that idea of I'm always going to end up in business come from?
entrepreneurship.
Especially, yeah, because like you said, even when you have elders who are already in the corporate world and family wasn't necessarily in the entrepreneurship world, why did you have the ideology from a young age? Like I'm going to end up in business doing my own thing.
Yeah, so I think entrepreneurship for me, and it's interesting as I've had conversations like this recently where I've had to look back and like how am I wired like this? Um, a lot of it goes down to I think my upbringing and the church upbringing. So my dad and my mum are pastors of a church. My dad has, passed on just about 4 years ago, but um, we I've been involved in not just church but church initiatives. So our church way back when were responsible for bringing for doing some big things. So when I say big things, I mean again if we look at the David and Goliath example, it's a small church in terms of numbers, but big things were happening. Like we were the church. My dad was the person that brought Benny Hinn is a big minister at the time. Not sure where he is now, but at the time he was one of the like big, televangelists. We also brought like huge gospel artists into the country, and this was at the time when, like now, it's more like heard of, but it was very much pioneering at the time. So we brought like names like I don't even know if listeners will know Jesse Dixon. Jesse Dixon is an old school gospel guy. I think he's passed on now. There was also Andre Crouch. We brought Andre Crouch. Some of the biggest names in the gospel business. We brought Fred Hammond. We brought Donnie McClurkin. We brought Byron Cage. And a bunch of others. But this was like a long time ago. So there was something always ingrained in me, like, okay, even though we're small in number, we can achieve things that are, great and mighty. And then I went on to do similar endeavors. So I've always had a creative streak. So, what people who have met me in this phase of my life might not um, know that I'm a music producer, I'm a songwriter, I play the drums, I play the keyboard, I'm a musician. I used to be a choir director, used to be an events promoter. So, when I was coming up in church, and church was my only outlet at those times to really release these giftings and leanings. So it was a great ground. But I I used to be the musical director of the church and the choir director. And at the time, I'll be honest, our choir wasn't very good. Couldn't really sing. We weren't that great at music, but we had this choir. So I was like to my dad, okay, do you know what? I think that if we created an opportunity for us to rise to the occasion, we would. So I was like, if you know, give me um, the authority to create an event. So I'm going to create an event, and there's going to be some key parameters. First of all, we're not going to get a headliner from anywhere. We are going to be the headliners, okay? And then we're going to fill the venue, and we're going to do this concert. So, and my dad was like, yeah, okay, let's do it. So I created this concept. The concert was called He Lives, and so we had to go and get like trainers to train the choir singers, the musicians. We brought people in. We put together a whole team and committee of how to like do the event. And this was at a time when events. This was like probably at this point, probably like maybe 20 years ago. It's a long time ago. Um, and it was in Manchester. So I learned a lot about like how to get things done. We did promotions. We didn't have social media at the time, but everybody, in Manchester at the time knew about the event. We had like advertisements on billboards. I put together like a team of street team that was, it was like, those movies where you're doing like a heist, so you got the map. I got people in and I was like, okay, we're gonna go on this street, we're gonna go on that street, we're gonna go on that street. 6 a.m. in the morning, we're gonna do the leafleting round. So it's like we covered the whole area. And I wrote some songs for the choir. The choir got good, or the choir got better, let's say. And but the long and short of it is we sold out, right? And we packed the venue. And in terms of one of the success criterias of a church and Christian event, it was evangelical in nature as well. People people made a decision to commit to being a believer, committing to giving their life to Christ. So it ticked a lot of boxes, and then it went on. So I think we did about a 4-year run, and it increased, each year. And this was like before I even was thinking about like a full-time job because I was in college around the time. Um, so you know, to answer your question, it's things like this. There were other things that I was doing. I was running talent shows in college, where I was producing music for artists and we were performing. I managed a gospel duo called Mighty and Shay, and I didn't know I didn't have any skills in management at the time or any kind of like previous experience. I just knew we have a creative leaning, we have an objective, and we're gonna do something amazing. So we got them, I trained them in performing, and we went to a local a national talent search in Birmingham, and I was like, listen, guys, I'm gonna go out there, I'm gonna win. We went out there and we won, and then the the prize was to open up for Kurt Franklin. So they opened up for Kurt Franklin at the time. So I'm saying these are all things that was happening before I even like entered into into corporate world. So to answer your question in a long a roundabout way, things like this was like why do you know what? We're going to end up somewhere. But the challenge for me at that time was I wasn't doing it because I like money wasn't the goal, if that makes sense. So the commercial element of things is what I've had to learn along the way. For me, it's just been, can we like set a goal to achieve something amazing, and can we just do it? And bear in mind that those times, didn't have the responsibilities that I had. So it's literally just let's just do stuff. Let's just get it done. Let's be creative. Let's explore, and let's realize our potential. So it was, yeah. It's almost like I over the corporate years that began to train out of me, and I had to find it again on the tail end of my corporate career. Yeah.
It's interesting when I listen to you talk about one, there's a confidence and I want to say audacity to go to your dad and be like, let me own this. And I know it can be better when you've never done it before. Again, you managing a group where you've never done it before. That confidence is there strong front and center. And it's interesting when I think about that. And then I think about you talking about the subservient nature that you kind of had growing up as the third child. Like they don't seem to go
It
hand
doesn't
in
go
hand.
together. and 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 it's a very very good point you make. And this is the almost like the tussle that I had with myself and with my situation, because like, listen, it's like I've got all of these big things, big goals, big dreams, big, leanings, but I have this other side which is holding me back, or which maybe I'm allowing to hold me back, because I have to be the one to take ownership and responsibility and all that kind of stuff. But that I'm straddling that line at all times. Yeah.
So with so much creativity that it sounds like you had in a way of looking at the world,
Yeah.
why from a young age didn't you think about going further down that path of even like choir director, producing for other artists, like, and going down that musical path as opposed to going down the software and studying that uni route?
I didn't really, it's a lack of knowledge and a lack of awareness, because all I knew was what I'm good at and what I had a desire and leaning towards. I don't know, like, oh, there's a career in this. Oh, like, how do you can make money from this, or you can, I don't know. I honestly don't know. And funnily enough, I was around people, at those times who were like session musicians. They were, some people were like, oh, this person's playing for Tina Turner. This person's opening up for like, George Michael. I was close to these circles, but I just didn't know like how to get there, or even it wasn't connecting as something that I had access to. And then when you add into this pot of gumbo, the Nigerian parent factor, which is like, everything you're doing there is nice, okay, continue having your fun, but you're going to do engineering, or you're going to be a doctor, or you're going to do you're going to do a serious subject. Now, I don't think that was like force fed to me by my parents, but I was in that like, it just, I somehow I knew that like these were not real careers. The music and stuff like that. So I never made the link that, oh, there's a career here. So it was more of like, okay, this is what I'm doing on the side. This is what I'm doing, behind closed doors, kind of thing. Yeah.
Hmm. Were you the only one in your family that was that way inclined, as in dipping into so many different things, or your brother is also like that as well?
No, I mean, I think I probably was the most leaning towards that, but we were all, I have three brothers. My eldest brother, I think he probably was the most corporate leaning, so he's like still there now, and like, if any example of what a corporate should look like he's killing it in that regard. My middle, as in I'm the youngest, the middle brother, he, it's kind of similar in some regards, has some creative leanings, but I think he began to explore them later. So not as early as, when I was doing it. Yeah.
So you're pouring out all those gifts and talents into the world, exercising in different ways. Then you go
Yeah,
down into the corporate world, and the corporate world does what it does, and it makes you forget a lot of things, and kind of gets you into this box that
it
keeps
does.
you. How was those 18 years of navigating the corporate space, especially being a creative? Like, I'm curious to understand how it was for you.
Yeah, yeah. It's not for the faint-hearted. I think where I look at it now is I'm so grateful for the just my whole journey because there's an element of battle training that I can definitely say that I have. So just as a case in point, and I'm kind of veering off your question, I will come back, but a lot of scenarios that I find myself in now, people who will meet me, you have no idea of what I'm capable of because of the things that I have been through and background. So it's a bit weird, but have you ever seen Jason Bourne? The Bourne Identity. Sometimes even me, I'm like, wow, how did I even do that? Because there is a muscle memory of just situations that you found yourself in. So my whole career was almost like towards the end of my career, I did more contracting work and project-based work. But throughout my whole career, it's always been, you know, you're dropped into a situation because my role was like project-based. It was, business analysis. It was digital transformation. So you're always having to come into a chaotic situation because the whole point of digital transformation in the context that I was doing it is processes are not in order, things are not going the way they're supposed to go, and you're the person that has to go in and make sense of it, then fix it or arrange for it to be fixed. So like I am naturally now just um uh in tune with being able to just like uh be okay in chaos, be okay in disarray because it's almost like in like the Matrix. You can see, okay, it's all messy, but I can look through it and I can see, okay, this is the process. We map this out and we can get it done that way. And the world is not going to end. We can make sense of it. But it was my journey into the corporate world as a creative and as somebody who coming into that has achieved from what I consider to be some huge things for somebody of my age and demeanor. I was like, okay, it was humbling because it's like, oh, on the weekend I was like, I was directing a choir that was um, singing at a sold out venue, and that was my event. But today you want me to be right, building spreadsheets. Um, yeah, okay, is is demoralizing.
That is humbling. There is no way to bring you straight right down to earth. Just to remind you.
you know or let's say we just we came from another country, we toured, we came back, whoo, yeah, we're on a high. Oh yeah, can you send this email to this person? Can you, like, it was so. And then on top of that, let's not even go into when you're working in a trading environment. So trading environments are fast paced. They are, I guess you could call it high octane, high energy, and there isn't much of a what's the word? Like, people don't watch how they address you. It's literally, this is the objective, get it
Just get
done.
it done.
You know,
Yeah.
with very colorful language, um, people used. So you're thrust into that environment where it's like, oh, it brings back the subservient side of me because like, oh, okay, you know, I'm going back into my shell because I don't know how to like I don't know how to respond to that. I don't know how to deal with that other than yes, yes, sir, yes, ma'am. You know, so these are the extremes, and I had to basically find find my way through. But even in that, find myself, but also find the part of myself that potentially was lost along the way. So, um, yeah, it's much where I am now is I love it because I can reflect back and see, okay, these were the things that I was being were being trained in me. I was never going to be there forever. Part of me sometimes thinks, I was there for too long, maybe, but is what it is. But where I am now, and the situations that I find myself in, I can draw from all of that. I can draw from all of that, So yeah.
And it's a when people talk about transferable skills, for me, that's the power of recognizing that actually the situations that we go through all give us the tools to be able to take from one environment and transfer them. And one of the key things that we in my business talk about, this framework we have about unlearn, unlock, and unleash that you're aware of. And it's like what are the things that we need to unlearn if we're going from one space to another one, because they don't serve us anymore. But then that allows us to unlock the other things that we do already have, that we did already know, that we might have forgotten, and then unleash that into the world on top of the things that we're taking from that environment we've come from as well. And it's powerful to see you frame that, be like, no, I could see this and I know how to handle chaos, which is like a number one key for being an entrepreneur, because it is chaotic. So things like that, being able to take all those different skill sets and examples and apply them into your new world as well. It's great to see.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for the journey because it's like I consider it to be, a long um setup, but I am so excited about, the things that are in front of me. And I feel like there's a certain chasms that have to have been crossed, and there's certain rites of passage and milestones that have to be achieved, or that have to have been achieved for my own personal development, so that the opportunities that are in front of me at the moment and the things that we're working towards, if I had not gone through, then I would not be ready. If you think of biblical examples, we've talked about David and Goliath, so I'm sure when he was wrestling with bears and tigers, you know, I don't think that he went unscathed. I'm sure that some of those, tigers and bears got a few licks in. I'm sure he scratched himself. I'm sure he has wounds. I'm sure if you look at David, his body would be bruised. You've also got the likes of who's it? Is it Joseph that was sold by his brothers and he went into, yeah, and all of those things where it's like if you actually just focus on those parts of people's life, major trauma, major like things that he would have had to deal with emotionally because they were not nice. Imagine that, getting sold by your brothers, then being accused by Potiphar's wife, and then going to jail, and then helping people out in jail, and then the people ghosting you. Like, remember the people, like all of those things that happened to Joseph, and then he became, what is it? Is it prime minister or something of that nature? So
Number two.
number two. So I am, I guess what I'm saying, I'm grateful for the fact that like there is a journey, but what is ahead of me is I'm so excited. And once you're at that, the point that, God takes you to, if I think about someone like Joseph, he's going to look back and think, okay, now I am in a position to, like, I'm presiding over like real decisions that are going to affect the whole country, the economy, and maybe the wider world. What I've been through, my experiences in life, the pains, the struggles, the wins, the losses are helping me to make, wise decisions, right? Because I have been through enough things to help me to be able to like be able to steward this new position that I have, so um yeah, I this is why I look back and I celebrate every experience.
How do you stay faithful when it feels like it might not happen, or it might feels like it's too far? Because if I use, like I said, Joseph's example, he went through so many ups and downs, and it was a very long time till God fulfilled the promise he had given to him. David was the same. He defeated Goliath and went back into the field, and again was forgotten for a while. To your point, like you were in that corporate space for 18 years, and there were times I'm sure that you're like, when am I really gonna step into my and do my own thing. So, and people find that hard to stay faithful when it feels like it's never going to happen. How did you manage to do that?
Yeah, there's a concept that I've been coining recently, and it's it's about like staying power. And I think for me, you don't realize that you have it until it's like, oh, okay, I'm demonstrating staying power. And for me, it's about like having a purpose, right? So um, if you if you have a clear, and it might not even necessarily be a clear and crystal goal, but like a purpose that you are meant for something specific, and you're meant for something different than where you are now, and you're meant for something greater. These are some of the guiding um, tenets that have helped me. It's a matter of purpose and mission. And the thing with purpose and mission, it might not always be clear what it is, but it will be clear what it isn't. Meaning, when I'm in a situation that it's like, okay, it doesn't feel right, but the reason it doesn't feel right is because I have my senses tuned to my purpose. And even though I'm still figuring out my purpose and figuring out what that destination is supposed to look like, I know what it I know when it feels that it's wrong. So I use that to guide me, and just have a why, right? I've always had a guiding principle, and I think like a mission of it's we want to go biblical again, apostolic. So for me, apostolic basically is like um every gift, every talent, I've been given it for a reason to make something better, make the world better in some way. And my corner of the world, which is I guess increasing in recent in the recent years, is to empower people to be able to achieve their fullest potential, and using technology as that way. And again, having stayed such a long time in the banking world using technology, that was a bit my day to day. The thing that was always kind of like driving me was like, wow, these things that we're doing for these traders, these things that we're doing, for these companies, this is major. Imagine if this could be used for people that it's actually going to make a difference. And that has been something that has kept me going. And I straddle the line between, 'cause I know people have things to say about purpose versus profit. I think in recent history, recent times, I'm definitely understanding why they say profit first. Because yeah,
But the bottom line is key, is
mate,
important.
you know, so I'm definitely aligning to that, but I'm also not and never forgetting what the purpose is. So a lot of my decision making from a company and business perspective have been, okay, where is the where is the profit? And let's focus on that, but make sure that it aligns to the purpose, either subsequently or coherently. You know what I mean? So yeah, yeah.
So now with altitude, you're fully in your purpose. What is it that you're trying to achieve?
Honestly, I want to change the the landscape, and I want to change the face of entrepreneurship. I've always had that, driver. And if I align to my younger self, the champion versus the challenge, sorry, if I align to my younger self, the challenger versus the champion, I want to use technology to make those who would have been challengers to now step up as champions. So what you can do with technology right now, whether it's AI, automation, I think those are the big buzzwords at the moment, it will allow you to achieve something that you would not have been able to achieve without it, or without having loads of money, time, or resource. But it will enable you to like be, as a visionary, achieve what your outcome is. So I want people to be able to say, listen, I want to achieve this goal, and technology can help you to do it. No longer do I want people to be saying, "Oh, I wish I could achieve this goal if only I had this, if only I had that," right? I'm looking at using how can we make technology accessible and available, for people to do that. And the initiatives that I have with my company, so we've just launched our, AI workforce heroes, which is our AI bots. So this is for, business owners who want to get more leads. They want to make more sales. They want to, streamline their operations. We have a whole bot solution that does that now, and it's available. And it does some crazy stuff. Like even me, when we're demoing it, I'm like, wow, this stuff is actually crazy. And we're working on some more stuff in the back end, to be able to really empower. Um, so that's kind of really our goal.
It's a very big task when you when you talk about basically reinventing entrepreneurship. Like, why take on such an amazing vision to be had, but why take on something so big, and why do you think it needs to be reinvented, reshaped into something different?
Yeah, I mean, so if I go with the big one, I think I'm aligning right now with um, if it's in you, then it's in you for a reason. I think is it the Napoleon Hill Think and Grow Rich, where it talks about like the fact that you have the desire is an indication that you have the ability to see it through. So there's that. But I'm now at that kind of phase where it's like, um, why I want to normalize going for big things and setting big goals because it's only audacious because most of us have been tuned to not setting big goals, right? But now I'm aligning myself where normalcy, normality is big. I want everybody or everybody around me to like at least feel like I can go for a big goal, and I'm not weird for it. Whether I have the ability to do it is a completely different question, but um, to go for a big goal, I want that to be a standard. Um, yeah. So in terms of like is entrepreneurship broken? I think for me, I have seen enough, and the data suggests that there are many creative, let's say, creative people, creative groups. Even let's say the um, Black and African community as a as an example, huge amounts of creativity, but not always the support or not always the resources to make something of that creativity. And I know that there are initiatives. I just want to, do my part. I want to do my part to support and to make somebody who may have initially felt like, oh, this thing that I'm looking to do, I'm not even going to go for it because it's not possible for me. I want to change that person's outlook and make them like have a go, but not just have a go, provide the tools, the resources, and the support for them to be able to do that. So yeah, that's I'm just aligning to I would say purpose, but also a mission, and that's where I am.
Have you found that predominantly those from, I'm going to call it Black British-esque Western world, have limits on what is possible as opposed to some of our counterparts? And the reason why I said Black British, because I think those who are born in, for example, in Nigeria or any parts of the diaspora, we look at life very, very differently. And we have that drilled in from day dot. But then because of what can happen when you grow up in the Western world and the environments that you grew up in, it's very much easy for you to stay in that box and just put limits on what is possible. So is what you're trying to do be like, actually, you know what? I want to break open that box of actually what you're capable of building as a business. Don't put limits on it just because the world told you you need to.
Yeah. 100%. My thing is, like, I would prefer it if you were the one. When I say you, I mean, people in general, experience the limits for yourself. Don't don't be don't be don't put society's limits on you, or don't put someone else's limit on you, to the point where you wouldn't even try, right? Like, I would rather you go as far as you can, and then you reach the ceiling, and then you can say, okay, I experienced this ceiling for myself, so I have a choice to make. I'm either going to accept that ceiling, or I'm going to try and break through it. But I don't want people to not even attempt. So the reason why people wouldn't even attempt is because you're bogged down by what you see, what you hear, and what you're around. So it's become a societal norm for you to say, do you know what? People like me can't get
Can't do
past
it.
here.
Yep.
And I know that I'm not even looking at this from like a statistical point of view, because there's data that will back it and there's data that will refute it. I'm just saying, from a mindset point of view, like, just don't put a limit, you know? Like, try and break the limits at all times. I'm an Iron Man fan. I'm a superhero fan. Those who, check my page, and if you check the products that we release, everything is superhero. Great time to be alive for a geek and a nerd like me. But if you think of the Iron Man, I think it was Iron Man 1, right? When he was testing out one of his first suits. Jarvis is his AI, and he's telling him, "Oh, it's not ready. Do some more tests." Iron Man was like, "Oh," Tony Stark was like, "No, that's cool. Let's go and fly." Sometimes you've got to run before you can walk. Obviously, he's tongue in cheek and he's joking about, but I love that example of someone who was like, "Do you know what? I'm just gonna test the limit. Let me test the limit, and let me see if I can break the limit." So in that whole scene that I'm referring to, the limit that he was able to find was that he cannot fly so high in the air, like, high altitude, without catering for the freezing. So when you get so high up, it gets so cold that the suit froze. So then he was able to identify, do you know what? Oh, I need to add something to my suit to make it heat when it gets there. And that was something that other people, if you watch later on in that film, one of his enemies did not do that, and obviously he lost. So for me, it's like, just test the limit. Don't put any limits on, and let's, like, rid ourselves of this stigma of, like, if something breaks, it's not bad. Breaking is not bad. You know, breaking is good. It's good to break limits, and it's good to, like, it's good to, yeah, break it. Whether you break it publicly or break it in private, whether you fail publicly or fail in private, like, break it. Break a lot of things, because that's the only way that you can test your limits, or you can even know that those limits exist. I would rather, it's going to sound weird, I would rather have a list for me of my own personal limitations, so that I know, okay, this is my list of what I need to break, right? I have a limitation here, 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 here. And the reason I have got that list is because I have done something to go out, and I've hit a wall. So that means that, okay, I'm not a failure. It's nothing wrong with me. I've just identified list of things. It's almost like, okay, this is now my to-do list. Break this limit, break this limit, break this limit, break this limit.
And one thing I love about that example um, is I saw his AI was telling him, don't do it. And I saw that as an example of your brain. And naturally, your brain would tell you, because that's what it's built for. Don't go past this, stay here. And what he chose not to do was what I see as your soul coming alive. You're like, no, I can push further. Let me see what's possible. And it's amazing to have that balance and that dance between your brain and your heart. And which one do you listen to? And that can apply to so many areas of society of when you have people around you saying, don't do this. But then you have others cheering you on, like, who do you listen to? Who do you have around you? And all the different elements like that, which is, it's a great, powerful metaphor, just thinking about the way you broke it down.
Yeah, yeah. I draw so many examples of from superheroes. I don't know whether it's good or bad, but There's a lot of lessons in superhero films.
There's a lot of lessons. Honestly, that's why I love superheroes. I love Marvel, but I love superheroes in general because that for me, there's an imagination piece
Yes.
that goes beyond how we approach life, generally speaking, and that's what generally speaking films like that allow you to do and think in a very different, abstract kind of way, but they make it come alive more. And in fact, speaking of failures, then I'm curious since you've started running your own company, what are some of the failures that you have gone through that you have learned from?
Yeah. How long do you have? Like the list, the list is huge. So, I would just say the thing with entrepreneurship, even though I'm saying how purposeful and how great it is, it's extremely hard. It's extremely hard because I am I've started off with a goal, I've started off with a vision, and I've started off with maybe some level of core competency. But what I have learned through entrepreneurship, and not just entrepreneurship, but like business running and business ownership, is the fact that there is like that one core thing that I'm good at, even if it might be a huge thing. There's so many other things that are required in, operating and running and having a successful business that I'm like massively not good at. And I think the first part for me was that reality check that okay, for someone who's capable and has a bunch of skills, whoa, I'm really bad at this. I'm really bad at that, and I'm really bad at that. So I part of my failings have been not putting the right resources and the right people in place for certain things. So hiring has been something that I've definitely learned. Partnerships, right? So, I've made some failings in terms of people or organizations and entities that I have partnered with. And the lesson for me is, how do you assess or what is the criteria to enter into a partnership? How do you measure it, and how do you pre-measure it? Because sometimes you get into partnerships and it's all good initially, and then maybe expectations are not aligned or effort is not given by both parties, and the lesson there is, outline things up front, um, and have contracts, have agreements that are airtight. Um, there are, products that we've released in the past that we needed to have tightened up the product. Um, like so many. I mean, I think, yeah, for me, it's about learning and learning quickly. So I saw a sound bite from Alex Hormozy, who he explained the um, the difference between being smart and being intelligent. So he has positioned the concept of intelligence as your ability to learn something and take action on it. So it's like we're learning things all the time, and we're having feedback loops if we are like perceptive and attentive all the time. But the speed at which I have learned something and I act on what I've learned, he calls that intelligence. And I would say, in the last couple of years, there's been so many things that we've learned. Like we've almost gone through so many cycles of learning, and and working really hard to apply um, those lessons in real time. So yeah, that's it's been some really really strong lessons that I've learned. Yeah.
And where do you think things are going when you see the rate and pace of technology, everyone jumping in AI now and everything else? Where do you see things going?
I think, if we talk about technology and AI alone, I think within the next 5 years, um, everything is going to be much more technology driven. And to be honest with you, I sometimes struggle with these questions because it kind of presupposes that there is something that hasn't yet happened, but actually we're there already. So in the last, I would say, 10 years, technology has been so ingrained in everything that you do. You can take an audit of your day and look at how much of it is powered by technology and even to some senses AI. In your house, in people's houses, if most of your devices are technology driven. If you have like, smart devices, many more people are introducing smart devices that you didn't even realize that, okay, these are all smart devices. So you've got the concept of, like, they call it the Internet of Things. So you've got televisions, you've got microwaves, you've got washing machines, you've got dishwashers, you've got fridges, you've got phones, you've got watches, all sorts of devices, not just your typical computer. They are all connected, and they are all, like, even your sat nav, your car, they're all like uh training you into a technology-led world. And an amazing test would be if you removed those things from your life and from your day-to-day operation, will you be able to function, right? And the answer for most people is going to be no. I know for me, like, if you take the sat nav out of my car, I'll get lost. But that's just an extreme example for me because I'm not very good with directions. But technology,
Who is
technology,
nowadays?
this is it, So technology is there. I think where we're going to see a shift is in, decisions being made by technology based on data. Because what if we're not careful, we're kind of training ourselves to rely on these devices to make decisions for you that actually your brain has the higher capacity to make. So we're kind of, if we're not careful, we're dumbing ourselves down a little bit. Um, but I would say the next frontier, from the A, um, instead of AI, there's AR. So there's augmented reality. I think many businesses are going to start, ingraining that and into their technology. So AR is, um, the example I always give is, do you remember Pokemon Go?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, Pokemon Go basically is AR, right? So you put your phone up, and you can see things in a digital space, but you can see it in a physical representation. So obviously that's a fun example, but if you think about the application, you've got, property developers, property people. You can now do, showings of your house with using AR. Maybe like people who are retailers, you can use AR to show, what, like, clothes would look like on you, what certain makeups would look like on you. You can do that in real time. You can do tours. So let's say, you're in this part of the world, but you want to tour, I don't know, like a resort or a hotel, that's in another country. AR. We're already using VR, right? In terms of virtual reality, so that's there. Um, yeah, so much, so many things. I think it would be a lot more technology led, a lot more technology led.
Yeah, in fact, I like the fact I used the Pokemon Go example because it's interesting. That was launched in 2016,
A long time
and
ago. Yeah,
recently the company came out and they were using Pokemon Go as a training for an AI model that no one knew about. And this was 2016. No one was talking about AI the way it is publicly now. But it's like you said, to your point, it's been in existence for so long
for
that
such a long time.
there's a consumer where the consumer gets it last. But these have been background for donkeys of years where people and companies and military and governments have been using it in different ways and companies are using different ways. But now it's just became more commercialized. And that's where we're seeing things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we're going to see more. So I'm not sure if you've heard people talk about, like, AI agents or agentic technology. So people are going to be able to people are building their own agents and basically creating AIs that can do things for them. So I would say so many industries, if they're not already completely disrupted or transformed, they will be. So I think it's a great time for entrepreneurs because I always look at it from the entrepreneur lens. How can it help and impact businesses? I can't remember who it was that I saw a quote. I think it was is it Sam Altman is saying AI is going to be the reason that many entrepreneurs become billionaires, in the next couple of years. So I think it's for me, it's a great time to be a business owner and think about like those plans that you had for scale, those plans that you had like, all those goals and dreams that you had to branch out, to scale up, put them on paper, and now begin to think about what technology, what AI can be used, and start working towards that, because it will catapult you like miles ahead.
So now we have the vision. We understand what you're trying to do, how you're disrupting things.
Yeah,
If we're having a conversation in 12 months from now, what would you want to happen?
right. So in 12 months' time, I would have my AI bots. I want them to be used globally, and we've got a number in terms of how many users we're looking for. And also we're working on some smart apps. So in 12 months' time, um, I would want to have evidenced data to support that entrepreneurship has changed um, in my sphere, of the world. Um, yeah.
It's a very data driven but non-descriptive answer.
Do you know what it is? I have in the back of my mind, like there's these uh, pearls of wisdom that I have from mentors where it's like, don't tell your plans. So I'm like, okay, what can I say? But yeah, we're working.
And my last question to you, I always ask, is how do you define leadership?
Oh, how do I define leadership? I would say for me, it's about um, you know, leading from the front and leading as a servant. So it's one thing to, as a leader say, oh, do this, or here's what I want you to do, and things like that. But if you are not showing that either you're rolling your sleeves up and you're not, doing it, then you're not leading by example. Um, but I also the flip side of that is, um, if I think about like my lens on leadership is pioneering leadership, which is I have to be okay with uh, getting there first, and leading a path to an unknown, or what might seem like an unknown destination. So leadership for me, and in that sense, is how well can I communicate a concept or an idea that either doesn't exist or that there aren't that many reference points for, you know? Um, and then lastly, leadership is knowing that not everybody is supposed to be led by me. So I can only lead people who are to be led by me. And not everybody is meant to be, where I'm going is not for everybody to go, if that makes sense. So I'm okay if I'm okay with the ones that kind of like go with me, because that means you're the ones that were meant to be with me. But I have in the past I might have felt a certain way if, oh, well, we're trying to go here, why are you not going? It's like, okay, you know what? That's cool. We're not on the same journey.
Love it. Well, it has been fascinating learning a lot of things about you I didn't actually even know, but also putting together the pieces of seeing what you're doing and building, because we've had so many conversations around, I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to change this, change that. And for me, it's a great space to operate in where you're dreaming big and you're approaching it and be like, I know what it is I'm going after, and whether I achieve it or not, who I become in the pursuit of that and who I help encourage in the pursuit of that as well, in the ecosystem that I'm building, is what's the most important thing. And that is such a powerful mission to be on. And it's an absolute pleasure for you just to come in and just share a little bit of that with us today. And I'm really leadership. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. It's been great talking to you. Even talking through some of the things, I don't always get the opportunity to say all of the scenarios and all of the things that I've talked about in one sitting. So it's been actually quite therapeutic. Thank you. I appreciate that. And as always, thanks for having me. I really appreciate, giving me the platform to talk.
No problem at all. This is Everyday Leadership. We will see you all next week.